Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat. I'm with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other world. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
This hatred will be still further magnified by the effects of an economic crisis, which will stop dealing on the exchanges and bring industry to a standstill. We shall create by all the secret subterranean methods open to us and with the aid of gold, which is all in our hands, a universal economic crisis whereby we shall throw upon the streets whole mobs of workers simultaneously in all the countries of the world. These mobs will rush delightfully to shed the blood of those whom, in the simplicity of their ignorance, they have envied from their cradles, and whose property they will then be able to loot. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is tonight we are having a special, and this is All Things Esoteric. And so I'm joined again once a month by Erin Moffett. Erin, are you there, sister?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
I do, and thank you again for joining me. It's always eventful, and certainly over the last few months we've seen a huge movement, catalyst of the youth into just the order out of chaos, the whole plan of just insanity and letting loose the nihilists and the atheists and the communists and corrupting even pure social movements from the top down and leading them into just destruction and chaos. And certainly that's what we are seeing on the streets of America every night when the lights go down.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me again. I appreciate getting a new audience, talking to new people, because it starts to feel like an echo chamber sometimes in your own community and your own friends, which is nice because we are up against so much hatred for us being on the right. In fact, it's they're just kind of ready to attack. I almost was baited into an argument on Facebook that I just narrowly avoided yesterday, but I remembered, I said, this is going nowhere. So it's nice to have like-minded people, and you have like-minded people, but I find that there's still some differences, and it's good. It's good for us to have some differences and come together. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, no worries. I think that, even for us too, reaching out to your audience and just increasing outreach on all levels, that it's important for us to come together as communities and to especially share truth to help people to make sense of the insanity that is going on and embroiling so many, that because they don't know really the ulterior motive and what's behind the agenda of all this chaos, they are being led astray. They're being led into supporting something that, at first is not going to help as far as the protests. I think all that is, gone way out of control now. But it's also bringing, as far as, the rest of America and the sympathy and the want to really create positive change, that has now all gone out the window because of the the looting and the riots and the burning of property and the desecration of, I mean, there was just recently the whole Black Lives Matter movement are now openly declaring that churches should be targeted, and everything, just burn down everything, destroy everything. I've seen videos of where the youth are just going down the streets and just smashing all the windows of all these businesses. And I'm just thinking of how much each one of those windows costs. I mean, it's just millions of dollars, and it's all just, reckless abandon.
I'm glad you brought up Black Lives Matter specifically, because I don't have a big amount of research, but I'd like to mention what I know a little bit, and it's not going to surprise anyone, but this can be kind of fun for us when we learn something new about why these people are so evil. But if you, there's a Bishop Larry Gators. I was listening to him last night, and he's a black bishop, and he'll expose Boule stuff. He's one of the few people I ever hear talk about Boule. Are you familiar with the Boule?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay. So for anybody in the chat that might not be, it's really like the Black Secret Society, the Black Prince Hall Freemasons, and they're in control of the black community more than anyone else. I mean, when I say that, they're controlled, but they're going to be like the ones that are kind of the Democrats in the area, or they're going to be kind of controlling in as far as in the media. They're going to be controlling in Hollywood. And so it's kind of interesting with Black Lives Matter. He was pointing out, and I'll point out to you guys, that when they say matter, they don't really mean that they matter, like that they're valuable. They're talking about them as matter, like a material substance of a particular kind, or of particular purpose, or even vegetable matter, or material such as feces or urine discharged from the living body, material discharged by separation, or dark matter even. And so they're still not they still are putting them in a position that these people don't even realize they're being put in. And I don't know if I told you, Zen, but I had an experience at church. It's not my normal church. I was trying a new church, and I thought I had vetted it fairly well, which doesn't mean anything. It just, things can happen. But the second time I was there, just as this whole George Floyd thing was taking place, and the pastor and one of the singers, guitar players, was up there expressing how Black Lives Matter. They were showing a Carl Linz and T.D. Jakes video. I had to walk out. It was very upsetting. I wasn't trying to make a point, but I was so upset and saddened for the deception of this group of people. And the Black Lives Matter movement is literally witchcraft, and there's a worship of Kali. And if you look at how they stood on George Floyd and killed him, that's exactly how the Thuggies, aka thugs, movement of India, they were one of the biggest, what you'd call like a mafia, where they would kill people, they'd work together, and they distract somebody, and somebody would come up behind, and then they'd all put their weight on them, and they'd strangle them. So this is no coincidence. And the Thuggies were occult assassins of India, and who did they worship was Kali. So this is all very much associated with New Age, witchcraft type of stuff. And real quick, I'll mention one more time. If you look at the three women who are the co-founders, you've got Patrice Khan Cullors, Alicia Garza, and Opal Tometi. And these three women are LGBTQ, and they're definitely witchy looking, but I'm going to do more research into that, so I'm not going to speculate more on them right now, but be interesting to follow up on that.
Well, I do know that as far as the Black Lives Matter, the movement, and that they are, huge in supporting the LGBT community, and that one of the, and this is openly declared, anybody can look this up and search for themselves, but and that would make sense to me that the founders would be of this particular class of individual, because they do support that as one of their primary functions of whatever social change they're trying to accomplish. But the whole thing of protesting, and I did all this in my youth with as far as fighting for disability rights and the rights of people to live in the community and not be warehoused in nursing homes just because they have a disability, and the right for, people with wheelchairs to even get on public transportation, those kind of things. And so I know what it is to work for and to try to get social change and accomplish things politically. And even though I don't declare and do all that anymore, and with my time, because I know that the whole thing of the left and right is a false paradigm, and is something that I don't want to get all caught up in and waste all my time in anymore. But but I think that the whole thing with really creating a social movement and creating change, that you can't do it through violence. And whenever you support violence and the damage of property and even now they are literally murdering people, this movement and the people that are coming out in support of it. There are, it's like, terrorist type events and occurrences that are being associated, and that is unfortunate, because again, the whole thing of social protest and trying to get something changed, which I'm not at, I fully believe that the way that people have been killed, and it's not just black people, but there's anybody being killed by abuse of authority or overreach as far as the law, and that a lot of these police officers, just getting out of hand and killing people for reason I don't think is justifiable. And there's these kind of things are happening all over, and even now still are happening. And so I think that most certainly there has to be something done about that, and things have to be as far as some kind of remedy to the problem. However, what they are doing with all the looting and all of the burning down property and just breaking into and destroying things for no reason, that is, it's just not, it's not right, and it's not something that first can be sustained. And I think, and we talked about this in shows that we did previously on this topic, I believe that the reason the police are standing down as far as governments as well is that they're just waiting for a time. They're allowing it to get out of hand, because at some point the community and people are going to cry out for justice, on looters. And a lot of places, looters are shot on sight. And so when it gets to that point and these kind of things start to happen, then the outrage and the fury against police, and what are they to do, as far as doing their job? You can't have it one way or the other. You can't defund the police and allow these rioters to just take over provinces and states and towns and cities and communities. It's going to, at some point, it's going to be rape, pillage, and plunder. And then people that are innocent, that don't have guns to protect themselves, which that is coming too, because now, they're making the Second Amendment difficult as far as the population, the good people that would need to defend themselves against criminals. It's getting, as far as the taxes that are being placed upon owning and buying ammo and having guns, it's being increasingly more difficult, and the ammunition and the guns and the supply of them is also decreasing, so that at some point people that may really need them will not only be able to not afford them, but may not even be able to find them. And so these kind of things are going to lead to open criminality and mob rule, and so and when it gets to that point, I mean, we think that chaos is bad now. Oh my gosh, wait till people are being murdered in the streets by the dozens.
While I keep telling people it's going to get worse, my mind hasn't really adjusted to that yet. It didn't take long to change everything as we know it, and part of that is unfortunately a lot of people. This is my opinion, and you can disagree, but a lot of people really just sitting down and going, well, I guess I'm just going to obey the law, even though these aren't really laws. I'm going to wear my mask, and I'm going to wash my hands more than ever before, and I'm going to do all these things that they're telling us. But you get people up like Tom Hanks telling you that he just doesn't have any respect for you if you're not going to wear a mask. And these are people that America mostly loves. And then you've got Don Lemons arguing with, I call him Lemons, that's from, I watch too much Paul Romano, Don Lemon talking about Black lives only matter if they're killed by a white person. They don't matter when it's black on black. That's not the same thing. That's different. That's not, the movement is about, he even said it in his own words, he said it's about criminal justice, but only if it's white people. And you're right, it's going to get worse because these protests are allowed. We've got health officials, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes, that say that, oh, the spike in COVID has got nothing to do with the protests, and the protests are a good reason to get out. But in some states, they're saying you can't have groups coming together of 20 or more, or 50 or more, whatever phase they're in. But we're going to have a protest on Sunday, and we're hoping to bring in around 1,000 people.
Right.
So some states are going backwards. Our state is kind of going backwards. So far, we're lucky. Our restaurants aren't closing again. Our gym isn't closing again. But they're making everybody in a restaurant or a gym or wherever wear a mask now where they weren't. And, what's next? It's been spiking in the summertime. Imagine what's going to happen in the fall.
Right, when the real flu comes forward.
And Bill Gates said, if people will believe the science of COVID, then they're going to believe the science of global warming. And it kind of seems like that he's become the new Soros, the new Henry Kissinger, the new Rockefeller maybe of our time, because he's now the new rich bad guy that's taking the reins and pushing this agenda that even Donald Trump is for vaccines. You cannot tell me that he's not for these vaccines. You can't go back to a 2012 tweet that says vaccines are bad, but you got to look at what he's saying today about vaccines. So anyway, I'll bring it back to you. Yeah, it's Operation Warp Speed.
Right. Yeah, and we are living in times that what we were used to even just a few months ago, those times will never be again. The insanity of what we are living in and what we are dealing and contending is just going to be hyped up more and more and more in different ways, and the more as far as the control mechanism, the matrix, and the authority pressing down upon the lives of all of us as citizens, that's going to continue to become more and more apparent to the point where you're not going to be able to stand or speak against it. And if you do, you'll be targeted, and these are the times that we are heading in. And for Americans, that if you don't wake up to what's going on now, and not that it's going to matter, because as far as stopping it, because it's just going to increase as far as the police state tyranny, and then the infringement upon of our lives, and the tracking and tracing. Things are never going back to the way that they have been. And people are hoping, that everything will just calm down and disappear over the next few weeks, and they can go back to watching the football games and going back to gathering in large crowds. And but all that is, even schools, people going to schools. And this is like, they haven't even released the vaccine yet, and people aren't even lining up to take that. Wait till all that happens, because in my opinion, that's when the real epidemic is going to begin, because all these people that are standing in line thinking that it's going to be beneficial for them um, to take on these forced vaccinations, and that they're going to keep them safe, and that they're going to provide security for them, and they'll never have to worry about anything going into the future. Um, I got news for you. And so that's another reason why it's so critical for people to finally to wake up and get off of the couch of complacency, as far as the nonchalance of just ignoring everything that is going on, and not willing to investigate, to learn a little bit of truth. A little bit of truth. People's lives are at risk, and people are in danger, and all the youth and the children. Your children are dependent on you to have knowledge of what to do in the coming situation, in the coming times, to protect them, and to also to bring them some comfort, and to give them guidance and direction. And unfortunately, that is going to be in short supply, because there's too many people that don't know what's going on and don't have any idea as to really the real motives of the New World Order, the depopulation agenda, all the things that are behind the scenes. And that, like even the quote that I read, which was from the protocol, the third protocol of the learned elders of Zion, which this was written back in the late 1800s, thereabouts. And that's how far in advance they've been working to orchestrate the madness. These kind of things, and if you're not familiar with the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, it's a document that was published and supported by secret societies, and it was passed on covertly amongst the elite so that they could support with their mafioso, with their money, their power, their wealth, and their control, that these were the things that the bloodline royal elite, the progeny of the devil, had coordinated together and working in tangent with one another to bring forth over a long period of time this whole agenda for world domination and the suppression of freedoms, liberties, and truth. And these kind of things, again, there's a whole document of, I forget exactly, it's like 23 or 24 protocols, something of that nature, where they are instructing and guiding and directing one another on how to achieve politically, and as far as the whole matrix of control, how to accomplish what is without a doubt, in my opinion, the will of Satan and the Illuminists that are taking blood oath to support the agenda of the New World Order, of global governance, world tyranny. All of this has been long in planning,